peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Miriam Bugutu, and the show is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines across the continent of Africa today. And of course, one of the key stories that we've been looking at that keeps having new developments every day is the election, rather post-election, there in Uganda, and we have the latest this afternoon. This is after it has been reported that soldiers have left the house of Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine, and the Ugandan High Court ordered forces to end Wine's house arrest on Monday. Justice Michael Elubu, who heads the court's civil division, said if the government had evidence against Wine, he should be charged in court and not held unjustifiably at his house, according to Musisi, that is his lawyer. Now, Wine, a popular singer, was the main opposition frontrunner in the presidential elections held on January 14th, and his home has been surrounded by military and police since the elections ended. Now, President Yoweri Museveni was declared winner of that election for a record sixth term by country's electoral commission, and fraud and rigging allegations, of course, have been floated there. Wine rejects the election result, saying he has evidence of fraud and intimidation. Wine's team will decide today whether they will appeal the results of the elections. Wine's team had hoped to decide sooner, but have been unable to meet because of the house arrest. That is according to his lawyer, Mr. Musisi. The deadline to do so is February 2nd. Now, the U.S. Embassy in Uganda welcomed the High Court ruling yesterday, saying that it underscores the role of an impartial judiciary. Freedom of expression, assembly, and movement must be respected by all in a democratic society. That is according to the United States Ambassador to Uganda, Natalie Brown. And of course, she was blocked from visiting Wine on January 18th when she went to check on his health and safety, as she said on a Facebook post. So that is the latest coming there from Uganda, is that reports are saying that soldiers have left the house of the Ugandan opposition leader, Bobi Wine, who has been held under pretty much a house arrest since the elections happened there on the 14th of January. So if you're from Uganda, or if you know any information, first-hand information from Uganda, kindly confirm to us these reports and let me know what's really happening there as we continue with the rest of the news across the continent. And we go to Nigeria. And some Nigerian governors have agreed to end free-range grazing in the southwest of the country to resolve the deadly conflicts between herders and farmers. Clashes between farmers and herders over access of land and grazing rights have killed thousands of people over the past 2 decades. The governors, some from the southwest and 2 from the north, met leaders of the Cattle Breeders Association on Monday and resolved to also ban night grazing under age herding. They resolved to form a committee in each state to ensure a harmonious relationship between herders and farmers continue. Now, the meeting followed renewed clashes between farmers and herders in the southwest region. Last week, Ondo State's governor ordered herders to leave all forest reserves in the state. In 2018, the International Crisis Group said clashes between herders and farmers had become Nigeria's gravest security challenge, claiming far more lives from the compared to the decade-long war with the Boko Haram insurgency. We go to Mali, and officials in the Central Africa, not Mali, but the Central African Republic. Officials in the Central African Republic says government troops have killed 44 rebel fighters who had surrounded the capital Bangui in an attempt to overthrow the new administration. A government spokesman told the French news agency that the soldiers had captured the village of Border with the help of a Russian paramilitary. That's not independently confirmed, the information the government has claimed, which comes days after it declared a state of emergency to fight the rebels who control 2/3 of the country. They dispute the validity of President Faustin Todore's re-election last month. We go to South Sudan, and the chairperson of the Greater Jonglei Peace and Reconciliation Conference called upon the area residents to use the ongoing conference as the last chance to resolve their differences. Representatives from the Anuak, Dinka, Jie, Kachipo, Murre, and Nuer are participating in the Conference of Freedom Hall in Juba, which commenced on Monday, 25th, 2021. Now, Vice President Dr. James Wani Iga asked delegates to speak out their grievances to create a space for peaceful coexistence in the region. In June last year, President Salva Kiir tasked Vice President Iga with heading up a committee to resolve the ongoing conflict in Jonglei State and Pibor administrative areas. This follows reports of deadly clashes among neighboring communities in the Greater Jonglei area. The committee is expected to, among other things, identify the root causes of the intercommunal violence and organize a peace conference between communities in the areas affected. During one of his visits to Jonglei, Vice President Iga begged youth there to desist from revenge attacks and intercommunal violence. And still staying with South Sudan, and the Minister for Defense has asked soldiers at the training centers to be more patient as the government addresses challenges facing them. 2 weeks ago, Angelina Atenyi said they will graduate all forces at the training center at the end of the month. But while inspecting the forces at Maridi town of Western Equatoria State on Saturday, she called on the soldiers to be more patient as the government solves challenges impeding the graduation. And of course, Angelina Atenyi, she is the Minister for Defense, and also she is the wife of the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, there in South Sudan. And then we go to Somalia. And Somalia's federal government has officially lifted the ban on the importation of cod, otherwise known as miraa, from Kenya. However, it has imposed certain conditions for the commodity to be admitted to its territory. Somalia's Finance Minister, Dr. Abdirahman Duale Beyla, told a press conference on Monday evening that traders will now be allowed to import miraa, but businesses must follow proper procedure. Dr. Beyla urged traders to obtain the correct import licenses from the government and pay the appropriate duties. Somalia had stopped the importation of cod when international flights were suspended last year due to fear of the spread of COVID-19. But when international air travels resumed, cod importation from Kenya was still restricted, and cod from Ethiopia, a slightly different variety, was allowed in the country. Slightly different variety there. Maybe Somalis are not feeling this cod from Ethiopia too well, so they had to put pressure on the government to allow cod from Kenya. I'm not sure. It's just me here thinking loud, but that is the latest there. And then we go to Cameroon, where the Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists has called for the immediate release of Fang John Nkum, a journalist working with Bamenda-based Defcam Radio, kidnapped earlier on Wednesday, the 20th, by an unidentified gunman. The association considers his abduction as an attack on press freedom and the right of media professionals to practice without fear. And then we go to Ghana. And Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, lawmakers and hosts of dignitaries on Tuesday, that is today, continue to pay their final respect to former President Jerry John Rawlings, Ghana's longest-serving leader. A large crowds of mourners have already paid their respects to Rawlings, whose body lay in state at the Accra International Conference Center. Rawlings, who was 73 years old, died in November of last year, but his cause of death has not been revealed. His burial was partly delayed because of Ghana's political leaders disagreeing on some logistics of his funeral. Rawlings had a checkered past in Ghana, having led a military junta before coming to power in a coup in 1992. Rawlings was twice democratically elected to 2 4-year terms. A funeral service for Ghana's president will be happening tomorrow. There. So thank you so much. So that is the latest from across the continent. So just a few stories there that have stood out. First of all, the Ghana story about leaders not agreeing, political leaders not agreeing on the burial logistics of former president. I thought he had a wife. I thought he had children. Basically, he has a family, and I think I think their say would matter more in regards to such important, event. And so the fact that it was delayed, because even yesterday we talked about it here and we wondered, how is it? He died in November. And for a moment there, we'd even forgotten that he was, whether he was buried or not. And now it appears to be the reason why it has been delayed is because some political leaders in Ghana had disagreed on some logistics of his funeral. That is quite interesting. I would think, like in the case of, remember when former president of Zimbabwe died, Robert Mugabe, and of course the family were trying to honor some of the wishes of the former president Mugabe, and then the government, being that he was their first president, and of course the long time he served there in Zimbabwe, and all of that. So they wanted to give him a different type of, burial, and they could not agree. And so his body had to lay in the house for nearly a month before Mugabe was finally buried there. But Grace was, honoring the wishes of Mugabe there. I think that's what he wanted, because he died a very bitter man. The people that, had protected him all through his tenure as the president there in Zimbabwe, and the people he worked very close with, are the same people who participated in his being overthrown, and later on somebody like President Mnangagwa was later elected. So President Mugabe was not very happy with that, so he died a very bitter man. So he said he did not want anything to do with those people, so he just wanted, he had given certain instructions, and so Grace Mugabe was trying to follow them, and then the government also was trying to help out, and they wanted to give him a state funeral there, and we saw how that panned out. So now politicians were disagreeing on some of the logistics and how to bury Jerry Rawlings there, the late former president of Ghana. It's quite interesting. I would think that will be left to the family, but I don't know, being with his the history he has in that country, I guess they have more say. I'm not sure. All right. So in South Sudan, like we've said there, some soldiers, they've been training soldiers, and they've been trying to unify the soldiers there, but the soldiers have been in camps for a very long time. The training camps, they're supposed to have graduated and be posted, and they're still in those cantonment, they're called cantonment sites, they're being trained. But now, the longer they stay in these camps, I think it's a very serious matter, and I do understand. There are no funds to carry out. There's a bit of logistical problems there in South Sudan, but I think the sooner they're able to do this, the better. And the Minister for Defense, Angelina Tenyi, who, as I've said, there is the wife of the first, vice president there in South Sudan. They have five. South Sudan, they have 5 vice presidents. So the first vice president, I guess it's the most superior of them all, is Dr. Riek Machar, and the wife is the Minister for Defense there. Quite something. And so she went to one of these camps, and, she congratulated the soldiers for being very, very patient. But, also reports that have been coming out is that a lot of soldiers have been, running away from these camps because, of course, of the deplorable conditions in the manner in which they live in these camps. They go for days without food. The sanitation is poor. The conditions are very tough, and when they disappear from the camps, they leave with their guns and they go to the communities. And that has been one of the, not one of the reasons why, but one of the key, among other reasons, that have fueled the intercommunal clashes there in South Sudan. So I think the sooner they address the unification of forces in South Sudan, perhaps we might see this country coming back and, getting onto a path of perhaps finding a lasting solution for their peace and stability. There are some hoping that this is something that they should give them. They should look at with the urgency that it requires, because it was one of the key things that was supposed to be part of the things that were supposed to be implemented according to the revitalized peace agreement that was signed in 2018. Unification of the armed forces there in South Sudan was key. And then, of course, the state boundaries there and the number of states. And the number of states we saw they were able to solve, really, they did not agree. But finally, at least that, we saw some progress in that. And now, if they can solve this boundaries disputes, I think that will be very important. But the unification of South Sudan forces, because as it is right now, they're very divided, and they've been going through this initiative of bringing them together and trying to make them, to just have them understand, when you're a soldier, you are serving the people. Your job is to protect the country. Your job is to protect the people of South Sudan, because as it is right now, different soldiers are loyal to different leaders in the stakeholders, the leadership there in South Sudan. So that has created even a more insecure South Sudan, and these soldiers have been languishing in these camps for a very long time. So the Minister of Defense, Angelina Tenyi, went there, and she was inspecting one of the places at Maridi town of Western Equatorial State, and she told the soldiers to be more patient. And I'm thinking, okay, for how long? Because this is something that is quite important, but the government of South Sudan does not seem to be treating it with the urgency and the importance it requires. So I hope they're able to do this. Otherwise, the longer these soldiers stay in those camps with those bad conditions, and the longer some of them keep trickling back to the communities, and they're not even able to track them because they don't have the logistics to do so. And the much we hear of the intercommunal clashes there in South Sudan, peace will continue being a mirage there. So some of these things that were identified to be very important in the revitalized peace agreement, President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, and all of you there stakeholders in South Sudan, that is something that you have to give the urgency that it requires. This is something you need to solve very, very quickly. Otherwise, peace will continue being elusive there in South Sudan. James Bitorio saying the government of South Sudan is not interested in forming a unified army. The attitude and how they've been treating this, because this is very key. You cannot have a stable and a secure country if you don't have a stable army to protect that country and its people. If the army of that country is not unified in the first place, and that is the situation, unfortunately, there in South Sudan. So let's just wait and see if at all this year, President Salva Kiir will show the leadership and will give this matter the importance that it requires, and they're able to solve it very quickly, and they're able to fix this issue, because the longer these soldiers stay in those camps, the longer you keep postponing, the longer you keep dragging this matter. It's not very good for the peace and stability of South Sudan, whose peace is already too fragile. And so we need to make some progress, all right? After signing that the agreement last year in February, almost a year now, something needs to have been done. This needs to have been done already, but they were asking for more time. I don't know. They do have a bit of problem, especially when it comes to funding, and so that could be one of the reasons why. But also, I think there's been a lack of will from the leadership there of South Sudan. So as I started there earlier by saying that reports coming to us from Uganda is that soldiers have left the house of the Ugandan opposition leader, Bobi Wine. I'm not sure. I've read it online. BBC have posted it. CNN has talked about it. And even CNN has quoted, they've said that they spoke to his lawyer, and the lawyer said that he's free now. He was able to talk to the press. So let me know if you have information, the latest there. Things then in Uganda, they can change by the minute. That was like over an hour ago, a few hours ago. And so I think it's some good news there. So Bobi Wine was able to come out and speak to the press today. And of course, they have about 2 days to file the petition to challenge President Museveni's win. So we're waiting for that. What do you think might have made the government to relent in its efforts of to keep having him in the house? Because that ruling was made yesterday by a court there in Uganda. But the government did not even care anyway. The soldiers and the police continued to stay there, and so they moved from the place today. Those are the reports that we're receiving there. But you think the government perhaps looked and thought, if we continue holding this person here, and then the days keep ticking, he might not have enough. He will not go and file this petition. We will be brewing more problems for ourselves, because the government would have denied Bobby Wine his constitutional right to go there and follow the due course of the law and petition, President Museveni's win. And also, I think this must have been a strategy. We keep him as long as we can, and then we release him very few days before towards the deadline, so that he does not have, together with his team, because I'm sure they were all disoriented, they're not able to gather enough evidence to build a watertight, case against President Museveni. I'm not sure. Maybe that was the strategy. I don't know. But at least some good news today. Bobby Wine has been allowed to leave his house, and his lawyer has confirmed, and he was able to issue a press conference there in Kampala. So let's wait and see how that will play out. And a problem is brewing in Central African Republic. That is a conversation we shall have perhaps tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches, and before I leave, let me read this comment by Francis Chan. I think it's interesting. You're saying, His Holiness Pope Francis gave the South Sudan leadership a very humble action on how to look into the suffering of South Sudanese people and how important to bring just peace. But unfortunately, the leadership didn't take Pope Francis' teaching. We shall continue praying for true peace to come in South Sudan. Very true. I think the leadership of South Sudan is very ego. Their ego and their feeling of self-importance, it's too big. I feel like they need to walk around with a license for looking at right now, like the things that matter for a South Sudanese who is still languishing, in bad conditions, then refugee camps here in Kenya and even in South Sudan, in Uganda, and the people. All right. Okay, I have to go now. I will see you tomorrow, God willing. My name is Miriam Mugutu. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.